A single black man found a dying police officer. What happened next shocked the entire police force. Rain pounded against the windshield as Derek Williams spotted flashing lights in the darkness of the rural road. It was almost midnight, and this was not a route anyone would choose, especially a black man driving alone through rural Alabama. But Derek knew those roads well. They were part of his daily delivery route. What he saw when he stopped his truck made his blood run cold. An overturned police car, smoke billowing from the hood, and a young blonde police officer slumped in the driver's seat, blood streaming down her face. The name tag on her badge read Officer Jennifer Hayes. "Help, please," she murmured as she saw him approach the broken window. Derek was 35 years old and knew exactly what that scene meant. A black man, alone, next to an injured police officer, in the middle of the night, on a deserted road. If anyone showed up at that moment, he would automatically be the #1 suspect. But Jennifer was losing blood fast, and her eyes were already starting to lose focus. "Hey, stay with me. What's your name?" Derek spoke calmly, assessing her injuries. A deep cut on her forehead, possible concussion, but what worried him most was the dark stain spreading across the side of her uniform. "Jennifer Hayes, it was an ambush," she whispered with difficulty. They knew I was coming alone." Derek immediately understood that this had not been an accident. Someone had planned to attack Officer Hayes, and now he was in the middle of a situation that could destroy his life in a matter of minutes. A black man saving an injured white police officer would be viewed with suspicion. But letting her die was not an option. Without hesitation, Derek tore his own shirt and began to apply direct pressure to Jennifer's abdominal wound. His hands moved with a precision that seemed strange for a simple delivery man. He checked her pupils, checked her pulse, assessed her breathing, automatic movements, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. Do you know what you're doing?" Jennifer asked, surprised by his competence. "Let's just say I've seen worse injuries," Derek replied, without stopping his work. "You need to go to the hospital, but first I'm going to stabilize this bleeding." His phone had no signal. The road was completely deserted. Derek made a decision that would change everything. He carried Jennifer in his arms to his truck and sped toward the nearest hospital, driving with one hand while keeping pressure on her wound with the other. "Why are you helping me?" Jennifer asked, her voice growing weaker. Derek looked at her in the rearview mirror and hesitated for a moment. There were so many reasons to just drive on. So many stories of men like him who tried to help and ended up being accused. But there was something in the way she looked at him, no fear, just gratitude. "Because it's the right thing to do," he finally replied. 20 minutes later, Derek was carrying Jennifer into the emergency room at Regional Hospital. Officer down. Gunshot wound to the abdomen, possible internal bleeding. The medical team reacted instantly, placing Jennifer on a stretcher and rushing her to the operating room. It was only when the doors closed that Derek noticed the bloodstains on his hands and clothes. 3 hours later, when Captain Robert Hayes, yes, Jennifer's father, arrived at the hospital, he found Derek still sitting in the waiting room, his clothes stained with blood, waiting for news. The captain's gaze was one of pure distrust when he saw that black man covered in his daughter's blood. Did you bring my daughter in?" Derek stood up slowly. "Yes, sir. I found her on the country road, near." "I don't care where," Hayes interrupted coldly. "I want to know why a man like you was on that road in the early hours of the morning." There it was. The veiled accusation, the prejudice disguised as investigation. Derek felt the familiar pang of anger, but kept his voice calm. He had learned long ago that his dignity was the most powerful weapon against ignorance. "I work as a delivery man. I can show you my documentation if you want." At that moment, as Captain Hayes stared at him suspiciously after he had saved his daughter's life, Derek maintained a serenity that only exists in those who have weathered much worse storms and lived to tell the tale. If you're enjoying this story of courage and prejudice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened next when the truth about Derek Williams came to light was something no police officer in that city would ever forget. Captain Hayes' distrust was palpable. During the 3 days following the rescue, Derek was called in for questioning 4 different times, always with questions that insinuated more than they investigated. "How exactly did you know how to perform these medical procedures? Why were you on that particular road? Are you sure you didn't know my daughter before?" Derek maintained the professional calm he had learned on battlefields far more hostile than an Alabama police station. Each question was answered with the same methodical patience he used to defuse bombs in Kandahar. No rush, no anger, just facts. Sir, as I've already explained, I work as a delivery driver for Williams Distribution. I can provide my work records from the last 5 years, if necessary. What Captain Hayes didn't know was that Derek Williams had spent 8 years as a combat medic in the Marines, 3 of them in Special Forces units. He had treated war wounds in impossible conditions, saved lives under enemy fire, and coordinated medical evacuations in combat zones. A bullet wound on a rural road was practically routine compared to what he had already faced. But Derek had learned long ago that men like Hayes saw only the color of his skin, never his qualifications. In the 4th interview, Hayes finally showed his true colors. Look, Williams, I'll be blunt with you. My daughter was investigating a drug ring involving people in your social circle. It's quite a coincidence that you showed up just when she was attacked. My social circle? Derek repeated calmly, but internally he felt the familiar burning sensation of injustice. And what circle would that be, Captain? Hayes leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Don't play dumb with me. We know that drug trafficking in this region has connections to certain communities. And you show up at the exact moment my daughter is attacked? That's no coincidence. There was the direct accusation. After saving his daughter's life, Derek was being treated as a suspect simply because he was black. The irony was so brutal that it almost drew a bitter laugh from him. Captain Hayes, Derek said, his voice maintaining an icy serenity, your daughter is alive because I stopped to help when anyone else would have driven on. If that bothers you, maybe you should reflect on your priorities. 2 hours later, when Derek finally left the police station, he found Jennifer Hayes waiting for him in the parking lot. She had been discharged from a hospital that morning and was wearing civilian clothes, jeans and a simple blouse that made her look younger than her 24 years. Derek, thank you for showing up to the interviews. I know my father is being difficult. Derek paused and studied her. Jennifer had clear, sincere eyes, completely different from her father's cruel distrust. He thinks I have some connection to whoever attacked you. I know. And it's completely ridiculous. Jennifer sighed, clearly frustrated. You saved my life, and he treats you like a criminal. It's shameful. It's not the first time I've faced this kind of prejudice, Jennifer. It probably won't be the last. Jennifer stared at him curiously. Derek, can I ask you a personal question? Where did you learn field medicine? Those procedures you performed. I trained in first aid at the academy, but what you did was hospital level. Derek hesitated. There were good reasons to keep his military past a secret. Black ex-military men tended to be viewed as dangerous or unstable by people like Captain Hayes. But Jennifer had nearly died in his arms. She deserved honesty. I served 8 years in the Marines. Combat medic. Last 3 years in Special Forces. Jennifer's eyes widened. Special Forces? Really? Kandahar, Helmand, some places that aren't even officially on the map. Derek shrugged. I came back 5 years ago, settled here, started working in deliveries. Simple, quiet life. Why didn't you tell my father that? It would completely change. Change it. Derek laughed humorlessly. Jennifer, to men like your father, a black ex-military man is even more threatening than an ordinary black man. He wouldn't see a war hero, he'd see someone trained to kill living in his town. Jennifer was silent for a long moment, processing the bitter truth of those words. That's terrible. And, unfortunately, you're probably right about how he would react. 2 days later, Derek found out exactly how right he was. Captain Hayes had used his contacts to discreetly investigate Derek's military past. But instead of being impressed by his decorations and impeccable service record, Hayes chose to focus on the aspects that confirmed his prejudices. At the police station, Hayes spread a distorted version of the truth to his officers. Williams has extensive military training. He knows how to inflict injuries that look like accidents. And he was conveniently at the scene of the crime when my daughter was attacked. The poisonous narrative quickly spread throughout the small town. Derek began to notice suspicious looks when he made his deliveries. Some stores that had served him for years suddenly had no time to receive his merchandise. On Friday, Derek was carrying boxes at Harrison Supply when he overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. I heard that black guy who saved the police officer has military training. I bet he set the whole thing up himself. Makes sense. Create the situation, then show up as the hero. Classic. Derek continued working in silence, but his hands gripped the boxes tighter. He had been through much worse: open discrimination, direct threats, hostility in war zones. But something about this particular betrayal hurt differently. He had saved a life, risked his own safety, and was being painted as the villain. That night, Derek received an unexpected call. "Derek? It's Jennifer. I need to see you. It's about my father and, well, I think you deserve to know what's going on." They met at a cafe on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes. Jennifer seemed nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. "Derek, my father is spreading rumors about you, saying you have dangerous training, and that you may have orchestrated my attack." Derek nodded calmly. "I know. Small towns don't keep secrets." "That's insane. You saved me. I was dying and you—" "Jennifer," Derek interrupted gently, "you need to understand something about men like your father. For them, the idea of a black man being the hero of the story is so unacceptable that they would rather rewrite reality." Jennifer clenched her fists. "Well, then it's time to rewrite his narrative." "What do you mean?" Jennifer pulled out her phone and showed him a recording. "Remember I said it was an ambush? That they knew I was coming alone? Well, I managed to record part of the attacker's conversation before I lost consciousness." Derek listened intently to the distorted audio. Male voices, coordinating something, mentioning the investigating officer, and teaching a lesson. But what made Derek freeze was a familiar voice in the background, someone giving orders, someone he recognized. "Jennifer, did you show this to your father?" "I tried. He said it was compromised evidence and couldn't be used." "But Derek," she leaned forward, "I know who one of those voices is. And it's going to shock you to know who really wanted me dead on that road." What Jennifer didn't know was that Derek had also recognized that voice. And when the truth came out about who was really behind the attack, and why a respected member of the community wanted a young police officer dead, it would be Captain Hayes himself who discovered that he had accused the wrong man from the start. At that moment, sitting in the cafe with Jennifer revealing the first real clue in the case, Derek felt something he hadn't felt in years. The keen tactical instinct that had kept him alive in 3 war zones beginning to awaken again, because this time, the battle would be much closer to home, and the enemy wore a police badge. The voice on Jennifer's recording was unmistakable: Detective Tom Bradley, Captain Hayes' right-hand man for 15 years. Derek had heard him several times during the interrogations, but now he understood that those insistent questions weren't investigation, they were coordinated intimidation. "Bradley was coordinating the attack against you," Derek said calmly, handing back the phone. "The question is, does your father know about this?" Jennifer shook her head, confused. "Impossible. My father trusts Bradley completely. They've been partners for 15 years. Enough time to build a very solid scheme." Derek leaned back in his chair, his military mind already connecting the dots. "Jennifer, tell me something. What kind of investigation were you doing that upset so many people?" "Money laundering. Shell companies receiving inflated municipal contracts. I discovered a suspicious pattern over the last 3 years. Always the same companies winning bids, always at prices well above market value." Derek nodded. He had seen similar schemes in Afghanistan, where corrupt officials embezzled reconstruction funds. And who approved these contracts? The mayor, obviously. But, Jennifer hesitated, all municipal corruption investigations go through my father's desk before moving forward. There it was. Captain Hayes wasn't just a racist protecting his daughter, he was potentially part of the scheme she was investigating. The irony was brutal. Derek was being pursued by the very man who should be under investigation. Over the next 3 days, Derek put into practice skills he hadn't used in 5 years. Discrete surveillance, pattern analysis, intelligence gathering, all tools he had honed in counterterrorism operations, now applied in a small Alabama town. He began by following Bradley during his off-duty hours. The detective frequented a specific bar on Tuesdays, always meeting with the same 3 men. Derek photographed them discreetly from his truck parked across the street, using a zoom lens he had kept from his military days. One of the men was Marcus Webb, owner of Webb Construction, one of the companies Jennifer had identified in the suspicious contracts. Another was Dale Morrison, the mayor's advisor. The third Derek recognized from local news reports, James Fletcher, a businessman who had generously donated to the mayor's re-election campaign. During these surveillance operations, Derek noticed something interesting. Bradley always left the bar 10 minutes before the others and invariably made a phone call from the parking lot. Derek couldn't hear the conversations, but the timing was too consistent to be a coincidence. On Thursday, Derek received a call from Jennifer. "I need to see you urgently. Something has happened." They met at the same cafe, but this time Jennifer looked frightened. "My father called me this morning. He said he received reliable information that you are stalking me, that he has photos of you following me." Derek frowned. "What photos? We've met twice, always in public places, on your initiative." "I know. But someone is feeding him this information." "Derek," Jennifer lowered her voice, "he's talking about getting a restraining order against you. He said that men like you develop dangerous obsessions with the white women they save." The manipulation was brilliant and repugnant at the same time. Turning the hero into a stalker, the savior into a predator. Derek recognized the tactic. He had seen enemy propagandists use similar distortions to discredit American soldiers overseas. "Jennifer, I need you to trust me. Over the next few days, I may seem distant, but that's because I'm investigating on my own. I can't involve you in this anymore. If your father finds out you're helping me, it could hurt you too." "What kind of investigation?" Derek hesitated. Revealing too much could put her in danger, but she deserved to know the basics. "Let's just say I learned a few things in the army that go beyond field medicine. And I'm starting to suspect that the attack on you wasn't random. Someone wanted to silence your investigation." That night, Derek methodically organized all the information he had collected on his laptop. Photos of Bradley's meetings, municipal contract schedules, dates of fraudulent bids, connections between the companies involved. He created a complete digital dossier, with backups on multiple devices. But the missing piece was definitive proof of the connection between Bradley and the attack on Jennifer. For that, Derek would need something more risky. On Friday, Derek put his plan into action. Using a military listening device he had forgotten to return to the army, he arrived at the bar an hour before Bradley and his associates. The equipment, disguised as a cell phone charger, accidentally left on a nearby table, would pick up conversations within a 15-meter radius. For 2 hours, Derek pretended to read a newspaper while he waited. When Bradley and the others arrived and settled into their usual table, Derek's heart raced. For the first time in 5 years, he felt the adrenaline rush of an ongoing intelligence operation. The initial conversation was trivial, complaints about traffic, lame jokes. But after 2 rounds of beer, Webb lowered his voice. "Bradley, that cop is messing with the contracts again. I thought you had sorted that out." "I sorted it out temporarily. But she's stubborn, just like her father. And now she has that black guy protecting her." Morrison laughed sarcastically. "Protecting? I heard Hayes thinks the guy is stalking the girl." "That's what he thinks, and that's better," Bradley replied. "Let the old man focus on his racial obsession while we deal with the real problem." Fletcher leaned forward. "What real problem? The girl almost died in the accident." "Almost isn't enough," Bradley said coldly. "And that veteran complicated everything by showing up at the wrong time. Now she has protection, and he has skills we didn't expect." Derek felt his blood run cold. They were planning a second attack. Webb cleared his throat nervously. "Bradley, maybe it's better to back off. Too much attention has already." "Back off, my ass. We have 10 million in approved contracts for next year. I'm not going to let some rookie cop ruin that." Bradley lowered his voice even further. "On Monday, I'm going to suggest to Hayes that he transfer his daughter to night patrol in the countryside. Isolated, vulnerable. And this time, we'll make sure there are no witnesses or improvised heroes." Derek discreetly turned off the equipment and left the bar. He had everything he needed: Bradley's recorded confession admitting to the first attack and planning the second, a clear connection to the money laundering scheme, and evidence that he was manipulating Captain Hayes. But Derek also knew he couldn't just hand the recording over to the authorities. Bradley had too many connections, and Hayes was compromised by his own ignorance and prejudice. Derek needed a more elaborate strategy. Walking to his truck under the streetlights, Derek felt something he hadn't felt in years, the quiet excitement of a mission with a clear purpose. For 5 years, he had tried to be just an ordinary civilian. But some battles choose you, whether you're ready or not. That night, Derek worked until dawn organizing evidence, planning moves, preparing a counteroffensive that Bradley, Webb, Morrison, and Fletcher would never see coming. The former combat medic was about to remind his superiors that underestimating the enemy was the first step to defeat. While the city slept, Derek finalized a plan that would not only protect Jennifer but expose the entire network of corruption, and make it very clear that men like Hayes would discover, in the most humiliating way possible, the price of judging a hero by the color of his skin rather than the content of his character. On his laptop screen, the last line of the report glowed: Operation Equity Restored Phase 1, Target Protection. Phase 2, Network Exposure. Phase 3, Complete Justice. Monday, 6 a.m. Derek called Jennifer. I need you to trust me completely today. Go to work as usual, but wear this device. He handed her a small recorder. When your father suggests transferring you to night patrol, accept without question. Derek, this is dangerous. If they try, they won't stand a chance. Just trust me. At 10 a.m., Derek entered the police station carrying a military leather briefcase. The receptionist recognized him immediately, the Black Stalker, as he had been labeled by Hayes' rumors. I need to speak to Captain Hayes. It's about his daughter's safety. Hayes appeared in the hallway, visibly irritated. Williams, I've already told you to stay away from my daughter. If you don't leave now, I'll... Captain, I suggest you listen to this first. Derek activated a small speaker. Bradley's voice echoed clearly through the station. On Monday, I'm going to suggest to Hayes that he transfer his daughter to night patrol in the countryside. Isolated, vulnerable. Hayes' face paled. What the hell is this? Recording from Friday night at Murphy's Bar. Your Detective Bradley confessing to orchestrating the first attack on Jennifer and planning the second. Derek opened the folder, revealing photos, documents, detailed spreadsheets. 15 years of money laundering through fraudulent municipal contracts. Bradley coordinating it all. Webb Construction, Morrison, Fletcher, all in on the scheme. Bradley appeared at the entrance to the police station at that very moment, stopping abruptly when he heard his own voice being played back. His eyes met Derek's and the open briefcase. For the first time, the experienced detective showed real panic. Hayes, don't listen to this lunatic. He's obviously... Derek played another part of the recording. That's what he thinks, and that's better this way. Let the old man focus on his racial obsession while we deal with the real problem. The silence in the police station was deafening. Hayes looked at Bradley with a mixture of betrayal and growing horror. Tom, you said that. I said I was stalking your daughter to divert your attention from the investigation she was doing on you, Derek calmly added. And it worked perfectly. While you were wasting your energy chasing me for racism, they were planning to kill Jennifer. Jennifer appeared from the records room, having heard everything. Dad, Derek saved me twice. On the road and now here. Bradley tried one last desperate gambit. Hayes, are you going to believe an ex-convict over? Ex-military, not ex-convict, Derek corrected him, pulling out his military documentation. Sergeant Derek Williams, Combat Medal of Honor, 3 tours in Afghanistan, specialist in field medicine and intelligence operations. Derek turned to Hayes. Captain, for 2 weeks you treated me like a criminal because I'm black. You called my medical competence suspicious, my heroism obsessive, my presence threatening. Meanwhile, the white man you trusted was plotting to murder your daughter. Hayes' humiliation was palpable. Officers gathered in the hallway, witnessing the moment when his own prejudiced words came back to haunt him. Derek handed over copies of the evidence. The FBI will be notified in an hour. The investigation into municipal corruption will be reopened with this new evidence. And Jennifer will be safe because Bradley and his associates will be too busy defending themselves against federal charges. Bradley was handcuffed right there. As he was led away, he shouted at Derek, "You don't know who you're messing with." Derek replied calmly, "I know exactly who. Small men who confuse power with impunity." Hayes stood in the middle of the police station, his authority and dignity shattered. The man who had saved his daughter twice had just exposed the conspiracy he had ignored out of racial arrogance. Jennifer hugged Derek. "How can I thank you?" "By being the honest police officer you already are. And remembering that heroes come in all colors." 3 hours later, reporters surrounded the police station. The story of the black delivery man who saved a police officer and exposed corruption spread nationwide. Derek Williams, the man Hayes had treated as a suspect, had become a symbol of heroism and justice. But the most profound transformation was yet to come, when the city discovered that this simple delivery man had only begun to show what he was capable of when true justice was at stake. 6 months later, Derek Williams was no longer just an anonymous delivery man. The story of the hero who exposed police corruption had gone national. Job offers came in daily, security companies, consulting firms, even invitations to speak on leadership and justice. But Derek chose something different. He opened Williams Security and Training, specializing in training police forces in field medicine and operational ethics. Ironically, his first contracts came from departments wanting to avoid scandals like the one he had exposed in Alabama. Jennifer Hayes, now a detective, became his first employee. "I never thought I'd be working for the man my father tried to arrest," she laughed during a training session with rookie recruits. Captain Hayes had been forced into early retirement. The internal investigation revealed that his discriminatory practices were not limited to the Derek case. There was a decades-long pattern of harassment and systematic prejudice. Now, at 58, he spent his days alone in a small apartment, watching Derek's interviews on police reform on TV. Bradley got 15 years for conspiracy, attempted murder, and corruption. Web Construction went bankrupt when all the contracts were reviewed. Fletcher lost his political influence when the recordings were leaked to the press. During a ceremony at City Hall, the same place where the fraudulent contracts were approved, Derek received the key to the city. The mayor, visibly embarrassed by his connections to the scheme, praised the courage of this exemplary citizen who put justice above personal safety. In the audience, Hayes watched silently. After the ceremony, he approached Derek in the parking lot. "Williams, I need to say something." Derek turned, waiting. "You saved my daughter twice. And I treated you like trash because I'm a prejudiced idiot." Hayes swallowed hard. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now." Derek studied him for a moment. "Captain, forgiveness isn't about you deserving it. It's about me choosing not to carry your hatred with me." He held out his hand. Hayes shook it, tears in his eyes. 2 years later, Derek was speaking at a national conference on criminal justice, and he concluded, "Heroes aren't defined by the color of their skin, but by the courage to do the right thing when no one is looking. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't proving your enemies wrong, it's helping them become better people." In the audience, Jennifer applauded alongside her father, who had volunteered to work with homeless military veterans. Redemption, Derek learned, sometimes comes in unexpected ways. Derek's company was thriving. Jennifer was now chief detective, and a small town in Alabama had learned that judging people by their actions, not their appearance, was not only morally right, it was simply smarter. "The best revenge," Derek always said in his lectures, "is not to destroy those who have wronged you. It's to build something so great that they have no choice but to recognize their own ignorance." If this story of overcoming adversity and justice has touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true strength comes not from anger, but from the unshakable dignity of those who know exactly who they are, regardless of what others think.